Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Shirtless Plantain Show, the Soccer Edition. This is your host, Mitch. I'm here as always with Mateus. Hi, Mateus. How are you?
Doing good, Mitch. Doing good. How are you?
Good. Hopefully not buffering like this the entire recording. We're also here with Emily. Hi, Emily. How are you?
I'm good. I'm here with my crystal clear Wi-Fi.
You guys look crystal clear to me.
Really?
Okay. So maybe it's a Mateus issue. We love that. Let's get right into it. And we are starting with the U.S. men's national team. Our lovely U.S. men's national team played the first of two Copa America warm-up friendlies. First one was against Colombia. We play against Brazil tomorrow. And based on how we did against Colombia, I am not excited to get for the game against Brazil. We lost 5-1. It was not pretty. Mateus, I'm going to throw to you. What did you think from this game?
Mitch, it's a friendly. It's a friendly, and
Well, I already have a problem with that because I keep hearing people say it's a friendly, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? No. Because you're gonna play a tournament in, a matter of days, and you're gonna be playing possibly these opponents in that tournament. So I don't understand how people keep saying like it's a friendly, I don't think it changes anything.
This happened before the World Cup too. We got smoked by Japan, 2-0, but smoked by Japan, and tied Saudi Arabia before the World Cup last time. And Berhalter likes to just do little scrimmages as his friendlies. He's not a go out and fight guys. And we were okay through 70 minutes. It was 2-1, and then it turned into a fucking circus show with some fucking clown touches and clown dribbles on an individual basis. I have a list of the goals here that we took. They're ugly, right? But it's Jedi missing a tackle, Ream slow to react for 1, off a corner for 2, where a Scally and Johnny jump for a ball and don't get to it. Third goal, CCV with a clown touch. Fourth goal, Weah with a clown ass dribble. And fifth one, it was a big tactical mistake in terms of Musa and Luka wide, but Pepe can't backboard a ball that's passed straight to his feet. These are on the players, right? Especially the last 3 in the last 30 minutes, where it was really just stupid fucking mistakes. These are not tactical mistakes. So I don't know what you want to do except go rah on the coaches, and have him yell and scream, which I think he did. And honestly, we kind of missed the impression of him because we didn't get to see the press conference that wasn't transmitted. So we don't know how pissed off Berhalter is or how he's taking it. I'm just inclined to chalk it up to these players being lazy in the last 30 minutes. They'll get yelled at, and I'm not worried about the any tactical issues because it was just kind of a dress rehearsal pass through game.
I mean, not to be Carly Lloyd, but doesn't that speak to mentality that you're just it's just a friendly that we're playing.
Yeah, it does. No. It does. And I'm gonna reserve judgment until the Brazil game. If we look flat in the Brazil game too, then I'm pissed off. Right? If we're not, there's not asses on fire running around the pitch, then I'm really pissed off. Because it was okay for 60 minutes. It was 2-1, and we looked comfortable, not winning, right? Not blowing their doors off or anything. But we looked okay against a top 10 side in the world. I'm not acting like that's amazing or anything, but I don't know what coach elevates us above crushing Colombia. I don't think there's a world where we crush Colombia. So the first 60 minutes being a 2-1 sort of okay performance, and then getting smacked in the last 30 is really ugly. But I'm not going to be calling for Berhalter's head pre-tournament, right? I think this is okay for now, or not okay for now, but I'm not going to fire him now. I'm going to fire him if he does this after the tournament. Then I'm pissed off, and he's gone after Copa America when we get kicked out in the quarterfinals in the same way.
No, I despite my little banner under my name that says GGG out, I do think that a lot of people calling for his head are overreacting, because it's a bad loss, but Copa America starts in like less than 2 weeks. Like, we can't be like firing our coach 2 weeks before Copa America. That is not a realistic expectation to be had. And I understand a lot of people's like what they're saying, because I am not a Berhalter fan. I get it. I also am not thrilled with the prospect of who he is as a manager. But I think that a lot of things like that you were saying, Mateus, does come down to coaching. Like, not taking a friendly seriously as a warm-up to Copa America. Like, this is, like Emily said, this is a team that we can potentially play in Copa America. And this is a tournament in which we need to make a statement, because we are hosting it. It is not our federation. Like, we can't be hosting this tournament for a South American tournament and be like, just roll over. We can't be like only able to crush CONCACAF teams. And outside of our federation, we look horrible. It's not a good sign, and it's not a good pattern that we're seeing. Like, Berhalter's record outside of CONCACAF is concerning, to say the least. Obviously, we have so much more data of like playing CONCACAF teams and stuff like that. Like, the only win that we have outside of the top 20 FIFA rankings, which FIFA rankings are made up. So, like, I'm not going to put all that much stock into it. But the Iran win during the World Cup is the only top 20 win during the Berhalter era outside of Mexico, which I'm not going to take away from beating Mexico, because always nice to beat Mexico. But this is the worst that Mexico has been in a long time.
That's facts. That's facts.
Their federation is a dumpster fire right now. And that doesn't take away from us beating our biggest rival, which is an accomplishment. And the titles that we've won within our federation are an accomplishment. But where you are as an international manager, particularly in a smaller federation like CONCACAF, you need to be able to compete in bigger stages, whether that's the World Cup, whether that's now Copa America, which we're getting an opportunity to compete in. And I'm not calling for Berhalter's head prior to Copa America, but if we go out embarrassingly in Copa America, regardless of whether you think our talent is not at the level of a team like Colombia or Brazil or Argentina, regardless of that, the tournament is in the U.S. I'll tell you what, the game the other day did not look like it was in the U.S. There was a lot of yellow in those stands.
Yeah.
But there's an expectation that we need to present ourselves. Like, this team is too talented to lose 5-1 and to look like that. It was truly pathetic on those last 3 goals. Truly, truly pathetic. And I don't like saying that about a group of players that I really do love. Like, this is a very likable group of players. This is a very good group of players. And for them to just like roll over like that is not a great sign.
Yeah, it was really heads down, and the subs made it worse. And that was kind of the upsetting thing for me, is that like it wasn't like a high energy infusion of stuff like Luka comes on and it was like pretty bad. Like, Musa was not great either. CCV obviously with his first touch, like letting them in on goal, and he's supposed to be like the reliable guy, and Ream like being like the older mistake prone guy, which Ream was slow in the first goal too. But like, I do want more fight, and I think something that I noticed in the first 60 minutes that wasn't great. So like, throw away the last 30 minutes. Let's call that an aberration. But during the first 60 minutes, I still thought Reina was not giving a ton on defense, and against like better teams. I know he's amazing. I love him too. But like, going forward with the ball, but if we're playing against the ball against the Colombia, he can't be like walking out there. He can't be like slow to react. I think we need maybe to go back to McKennie Musa against the better team, just to like defend against the ball. So I'm questioning the new addition of like luxury players against good teams, and center back is looking kind of ugly.
That is a really good point. That is a very good point that you bring up about the midfield setup, because I do think that Reina unlocks a different level of attack within this team. But the security of the MMA midfield is very, very nice to have. And like I think about the England game in the World Cup, and we got a 0-0 draw that day. We didn't score. I felt like we had some opportunities attacking wise, but we have trouble creating chances through the middle when Reyna does not play. And to be fair, in this game, I felt like we struggled creating chances in the middle a fair amount. There was a lot of sending it out wide, sending crosses in to nobody. And I do think that you're right. I think that a more stable midfield and obviously I think there's still some question marks with Adams and like where he's at health wise. I saw some things I really liked and saw some things I really didn't from Johnny Cardoza. I think that he's an interesting player for Copa America because at the very least he's used to South American toughness by playing in Brazil. Like that can't hurt to have in our back pocket at the very least for our midfield. But I think you're totally right where for looking at our group, for example, like in a game like is it Costa Rica that's the fourth team in our group?
So it's us, Bolivia, Panama, and Uruguay we're playing Bielsa's Uruguay, which is fun.
Yeah, Panama is like a game where I think you start someone like Reyna, and Uruguay for sure is a game that you start McKinney, Musa, and Adams. Granted on health. And then Bolivia is somewhere in the middle. I don't really know how to gauge them, even though I will be at that game. So I hope that we win.
Bolivia is just as ass, if not more ass, than Panama. So if we don't get 6 points from Bolivia and Panama, that's like really not ideal. I'll be okay with the loss against Uruguay if it's competitive. I won't be happy. But that's a tough opponent. That's a really tough opponent. And then we get Brazil or Colombia, provided we get out of the group, right? So it's gonna be a test. Like Copa America is probably the hardest tournament outside of the World Cup for like talent per team. So we gotta treat it seriously. Like I'm a opposite to you, Mitch. Like I'm a Berhalter relative fan, but like if he doesn't perform in this Copa America, like it's fine. Get him out of here. You know, it's not. This is something where you got to show up and perform.
What do you think the perform like? If they go out at a quarterfinal again, don't you think it's just gonna stay status quo?
I mean, quarterfinal against Brazil, and we don't look like ass is kind of the expectation for me. Or beating Colombia, I would say, to get to a semi. That's really what I want. But anything less than that, and I think his job has to get looked at least. But like, if he loses Brazil, like, what are you going to do? Oh, you lost to Brazil. Like,
I think there's definitely context is important. Like the way that you lose or who you lose to is obviously very important because we can't set like a baseline of like if he doesn't make the semifinals, he loses his job. Because if we lose to Brazil and they go on to win it, all right, well then you got to hold up your hands at that point.
We aren't at the women's team yet. Like we're still not.
For sure.
Well, of course. I don't know. Like, what is obviously? I keep hearing like, well, this is a stepping stone to this, and this is a stepping stone to this.
Who do you bring in, Emily? Who do you bring in that's like better?
I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
I know.
I'm like, you gotta give Jurgen Klopp a call. You gotta give him a call.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I'm just wondering because the World Cup is a huge opportunity to grow the sport in our country.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I think that Copa America has always kind of been to me a like serious marker for this team, especially with Berhalter given an extension where it's okay. The players have advocated for him. The federation has hired him again. We're looking down the barrel of a World Cup in our own country, and if we are not in good shape, where like we're talking 3 years down the road, no, 2 years down the road, sorry, of a World Cup, like the U.S. needs to be in a spot where they are like fully built to we lost in the round of 16. Shucks, it was Netherlands. We can't be there for a home World Cup in 2026.
Yeah.
Like, there has to be a high expectation, which is why I've seen Copa America as such a vital marker in the progression of this national team. Because if it does go horribly, which this Colombia game potentially gave us a taste of, we can't in good faith go into a home World Cup with Gregg Berhalter as our manager. And that's a road of who do you replace him with? That's a road you cross if you're actually firing him. But you cannot in good faith be like, oh, well, we got grouped in a home tournament for Copa America, but Bolivia was so much better than we thought them to be. We cannot in good faith do that. And I'm scared that the Federation is just going to be okay with we gave Gregg 4-year contract. Our hands are tied, folks. We can't do anything.
If he gets grouped, he's out of there. There's no doubt. I don't think our federation's like that. I really don't.
I just think I saw Nico Cantor say something on Morning Footy that's just going to go pretty much how we think it's going to go, but that's still not good enough. You know what I mean?
Do you mean?
That we're probably just going to make quarterfinal and lose. And I guess Brazil, sure. But do we have expectations that he can develop this team to a point in, 2 years to compete?
I think you got to take a heat check after the Copa America, right? It's kind of useless to bandy about it right now. But I'm he keeps winning when it matters, right? The competitions we're in, we're playing pretty well at. I mean, granted, it does take a miracle against Jamaica, right, to win Nations League. It does take all these things, but if you're looking for results, he's got him so far. So
for sure,
yeah. But this is the yardstick, I guess.
I don't know. It would be very frustrating to me, and it's where I see context being important because we're gonna if we it's pretty likely that we could play Brazil in the quarterfinals, and if we play Brazil in the quarterfinals, we can't even with that we can't be like, oh, but it's Brazil. What are we supposed to do? Because we have to you have to look at this as a tournament that we can potentially win, and I don't care if it's our roster isn't as good as Brazil. That is flat out 100%. This team we played against Colombia was the first time we've ever started a lineup of 11 players in top 5 European leagues. Brazil has been doing that for decades. And but it's still if we roll up into the quarterfinals of Copa America and we get fucking slapped, a game that against Colombia where this happens, I'm not looking at, oh, we were good for 60 minutes though. You can't do that regardless of the opponent, because it's too vital of a time to be oh, but we looked good for 60 minutes even though we lost 7-1. So it's totally fine. You can keep your job. That's international soccer is about the tournaments. So if you can't do it in a big tournament, then what are we fucking doing here?
Yeah. No, I'm just saying my panic level right now is at a 2. If we suck against Brazil, it's at a 5. And if we're not beating the shit out of Bolivia, it'll be a 10. But yeah, I expect it to change. I expect this to be a game where the players came out flat and they were drilling things passing into the middle all the time, despite the Colombia defense being there, rest defense being there. And this is just an aberration. But if things continue to be ugly, it escalates quickly.
If we don't beat Bolivia, I'm leading the Gregg out chance walking out of AT&T Stadium. I'm walking out of that stadium, leading those chants.
Out of AT&T Stadium. I think I'm just looking for a moment in the tournament where I see passion and belief and fight, or in I don't know, a Landon Donovan moment against Algeria. Just something that's bigger than, I don't know, the team to that breaks out of the soccer media into mainstream sports here.
To be fair, we've seen passionate moments from this team, but I understand what you mean in terms of a more impactful kind of moment, and I would love to see that as well. Before we move on, we've been pretty negative and fair. We lost 5-1. Was there any positives that you saw, Mateus, from this game?
I thought Balogun was bright in the first half, especially. I thought he was getting shots off. Weah in some moments was good, in some moments was ass. Scally wasn't total ass. I think the last time he was out of the field and got pulled for not being able to progress the ball forward today, or not today, but against Colombia, he was less than ideal, but he was doing something, and he was like dribbling the ball, carrying the ball forward, which he wasn't doing at all the last game. So
my positives that I wanted to talk about were I liked the way a goal a lot. I just think he's money in that kind of situation.
Yeah.
And then Joe Scally, who I thought was pretty bright, and I'm higher on him than you are. Fucking clearly, you could tell just by like how we're prefacing a language about Joe Scally.
Wasn't total ass.
Yeah. No. But obviously he's doing something completely different than what Des does when he plays in that position. He's much more of an out-and-out defender, and I think it worked. I think Diaz didn't have all that much to do. He had a couple opportunities here and there, but I think there was like 3 opportunities in the first half where a worse defender gets totally skinned. And I think Joe Scally totally stood his own. Like, we have other players that can pick up burden of progressing the ball. I was impressed with that, where I'm like not upset if he is the right back starter going into Copa America. But I would love. Do you think we're going to see any experimenting with the lineup in the Brazil game? Like the way at right back thing's been floated. Do we think we maybe see that? Maybe see an MMA midfield?
Not against Brazil. I hope we see something. Just
I don't think you can afford to. Yeah, what? He should have done that in the Colombia game, and then you have an excuse for why things are so ass.
Yeah.
Oh man,
because you can't have any excuses after this one, you know.
If we get thrashed, absolutely, because then it's going to be just very, very bad vibes going into Copa America. But Mateus did mention we did have pretty bad vibes going to the World Cup. And I'll be honest, I completely forgot about those games. Those were pretty bad vibes games going into the World Cup, and I completely forgot about them once the actual.
I don't think the World Cup was that great of a showing. You know? I don't.
So it was okay. It was okay.
Like, we couldn't beat Wales, so
we won one game in the World Cup, but it was still it was fine. Let's move on now to real quick. We've been talking about the main men's national team. But Mateus, I want to let you talk about something we didn't have time for last week, which is the Olympics roster. They're playing this week for some warm-ups for the Olympics, the U23 team. What are your thoughts on some players we should look out for, or players that didn't make the roster?
Yeah, so I'm just going to do a quick good, bad, and ugly. The U.S. men's are playing tonight, Tuesday, against, I believe it's U23's Japan, or maybe it's Japan full strength, but Japan, nonetheless. Quick good. Aiden Morris isn't playing for the Columbus Crew midfielder, is moving to Middlesbrough in the championship for $4 million. That's what we want, right? Players go test themselves in Europe, and like a nice little fee for a homegrown player for Columbus. But he was expected and is expected to be kind of a central midfield linchpin for the Olympics. So he's a player you're missing. But you have Rokas Puksas, who's a really highly touted midfielder in Zagreb right now that apparently Arsenal keep getting linked to. I think that's kind of fake, but his market value is like 6 to 8 million is what people keep saying. Maybe he goes to Belgium, maybe he goes to Italy. But he's like a Weston McKennie type runner kind of guy at this point, kind of like Ben Kromaski too, who's also on this roster. Tanner Tessman, Jolon Kabusia. Busia's injured right now, but 2 players that got promoted with Venezia to Serie A this year. Tanner Tessman is also Dabo Swinney's godson, so that's cool. He was going to go kick for Clemson. Now he's playing soccer. A player that got left off this roster, Diego Luna, is still going to be in the Olympic roster, or likely still be in the Olympic roster. We don't know yet. But he was left off this roster and didn't know why for a bit. The head coach is Marko Mitrovic, not Greg, so it's not Greg making decisions. But
wait, do you know why now?
No, maybe RSL Game Time.
The
There's some players ahead
explanation
of him.
the explanation I've heard is that they wanted looks at other players. Like someone like Cole Bassett was called up to this roster, and he hasn't been called up to a men's national team in a minute. But he's been having a really good year with Colorado, and he's another midfielder. So it's like, all right, well, let's have another look at Cole, see how he does in camp.
Yeah.
Like, granted, I feel like Diego Luna should be a lock for this team.
But he'd be more with the forward pool, right? And that's Paxton Aronson, that's Barak Terovic, who's playing okay for New England, Cade Cowell, Taylor Booth. So these are all guys that have either, like Cade Cowell, with the exception of Cade Cowell's in Mexico right now, have a little, are really highly touted in Barak Terovic's case, or Aronson and Booth are already in Europe. Maybe they get less game time. We know what Diego Luna is.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if that's starting on the roster or on the Olympic roster. But he should be on there. I don't know if he'll be on the starting or on the bench. And yeah, like you said, like there needs to be some fresh looks at guys. I think Pax is a guy who could be really, really important for us. He had a really good second half of the season in the Netherlands for Vitesse, even though they got relegated. One last note on the roster is John Tolkien, left back for New York Red Bulls, is a flat earther and a misogynist and an asshole.
Transphobe.
And locked his Twitter today, so that's
he locked it a couple days ago, or yesterday, whenever that all came out.
Shout out to Chatham, New Jersey, your finest son.
Just producing real ones.
Yeah.
Yep. Not a great look.
Anyways, Caleb Wiley should start. Fuck that guy.
That would be great. Let's move on now to one thing before we get into the NWSL games this week. We have some expansion bids for 2026 for the NWSL to join Boston's return to the league. We have 3 cities that we know have confirmed bids. We have 4 that are maybes, and we have 1 that did not bid on before Friday's deadline. The one that did not is St. Louis, which honestly kind of surprised me. I mean, I know that they're looking at like wanting a women's team, but it doesn't surprise me that they're like, I think we're just going to focus on what we have. We're a new team, and I think that's fair. The maybes are Atlanta, Denver, let's go. And in the article, there was an interesting thing in the article about someone who owns
building
a farm.
The money behind it, or whoever talked about building their own facilities and stadium.
Is something, because I've never heard of a name connected to the money behind for Denver FC or this like movement in Colorado, which that alone, like a name of like guy who owns pharmaceutical company who like was something within the Obama administration. I don't know. Like guy with money saying we want to build a downtown stadium and training facility is like, okay, well that's all of a sudden more serious than I've seen anything when it comes to a women's team in Colorado. So
but no way that's going to happen by 2026.
I think it would be a plan to have like at some point, but like obviously not built into.
Yeah. I think you can get accepted into NWSL, at least MLS you would, with like a plan and already playing at Sporting Goods Park.
If they had secured Dick's Sporting Goods Park while they built this other stadium, but yeah, I think the bar is a lot higher now for expansion bids for facilities and stadiums, as they should be. But yeah, go on.
Jacksonville is the other maybe, and Nashville is the other maybe.
Jacksonville, I'm just like, what? Okay.
Yeah, that's
Jacksonville's
kind of
a big city. It's
Florida.
It's the largest metro area in Florida. It's just kind of spread out.
I was just thrown off by the article not saying like Jacksonville, Florida, because I have a very extensive knowledge of AP style, and I don't think Jacksonville is a standalone city where you don't need to
Well, you
reference
think it's Jacksonville,
the state.
North Carolina?
Yeah,
Could be.
maybe. And then
Anyway.
the 3 cities that we know are in and have confirmed bids by last Friday's deadline are Cincinnati, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Cleveland, which is definitely a wild card because they don't have a professional soccer, like a top level professional soccer team. But I definitely see this leaning Cincinnati or Minneapolis. Like, if I'm choosing between those three cities, Cincinnati makes the most sense to me personally, just based off like what we've seen in terms of like fan attendance for MLS. They have a soccer specific stadium. Like it seems like a good setup, but like if they chose Minnesota, where other women's sports have been able to succeed, I wouldn't blame them for that either. Cleveland totally strikes me as a wild card. And I don't know if they're a 2026 team, but it's cool that there's serious interest and there's been a bid submitted.
Yeah, I think I would probably lean towards Minnesota. They already have it. I think they would like transition their USLW team like to that level, so they already have like a fan base, branding there. So I like that. I think maybe Cincinnati makes the most sense because Rose Lavelle exists, like, and she's like obsessed with Cincinnati for whatever reason. So I feel like they could lure her back, which is number one reason I don't want them to join.
That's the like me dream of being like, yeah, if Colorado had a team, that means Mel Swanson and Sophia Smith will be playing for us.
But Rose seriously loves Cincinnati. Like, I don't know if you guys are
the
aware.
Sold out at their playoff game last year. It was rad as hell. It was awesome.
I think it was last year too. She did like media availability with the Reign and or no, it was at the national. It was about the national team was playing there, but for some reason Laura Harvey was there, and she was just talking about how she wanted to show everyone around, take them to the mall. She's like, the interstate's so nice, you get places so quickly. Like, she really likes Cincinnati.
You know, if it's anything I've learned is that people from Ohio fucking ride hard for Ohio.
Yeah,
something about Colorado, something about Ohio.
I've been quiet here in the corner, but I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. That's what it says in my birth certificate. I will vouch for a stadium over by, I don't know whether it's planning for it whatsoever, but like over by Westlake, over by Crocker Park. Get one in the west suburbs, get one south of Cleveland. I'm just saying, there's not a team there. There's a lot of Croatians hanging around in Cleveland, a lot of Europeans. We have some soccer players. We got University of Akron, not too far away, in Toledo, former soccer powerhouses, home of Darlington Nagbe and the less heralded Caleb Porter.
You get LeBron. You get LeBron to invest.
Yeah, get LeBron out there. LeBron.
I don't know if I'm like trying to figure out. He invested in the Liverpool.
Yep.
Whatever subsidiary that
John
shit
Henry's thing.
Yeah. So I'm like, does that already have? I don't know if that already has a NWSL.
I don't think Fenway Sports Group has an NWSL team.
Well, I know they don't own one right out, but I don't know if they have money in one or something like that.
They got money. Money's not an issue.
Well, you can't put money in like a bunch of them. I was just wondering.
Yeah. The biggest thing is that if they're already investing in a team.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
That's the bigger thing. All right, well, it'll be interesting to see as we get more information about like what teams actually submitted bids and stuff like that. Hopefully Denver actually submitted one. That'd be sick. Obviously I'm biased of wanting a team here. But let's move on to NWSL matches this week. There was 4 MLS matches. We're not going to cover them this week. So we're just going to talk about NWSL. Also, we spent enough time on men's soccer with the national team. So let's get right into it with Gotham 2, Angel City 1. Emily, what did you think?
I want to say that 12:30 kickoffs are wild.
Wait, 12:30 p.m. or a.m.?
PM.
I just wasn't sure if it was like East Coast time was like so brutal with like no, but this game was in.
It was at yeah. Well, I had to leave my house at like 10 o'clock, so you know. Anyway, well, also you have an LA team like. It was 9:30 a.m. in their bodies, and they're playing soccer.
Early soccer.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to affect them, and it really did not. Actually, they started the game with more energy, probably than Gotham did. But Gotham managed to wrestle control after probably like 15 minutes, which led to a flurry of chances, and Crystal Dunn carried over her little hot streak of goals from the national team over here to get her first Gotham goal. Really nice. And I think that it was a pretty fun game, close, back and forth. And Anne-Catherine Berger is looking like the signing of the transfer window. Because without her, it could have been a Angel City win. I feel like that Galaxy Brain meme that's like starting off like, we don't need a keeper, we actually need a winger, and now I'm all where it's like small brain dim, and now I'm like big brain. I'm like big brain like lights.
Galaxy,
Like,
Galaxy.
oh,
Brain.
she could be the signing that secures us another championship. She was like starfishing everywhere, contorting her body and like just crazy saves. So I feel like if you're Angel City, you have to feel kind of tough with this one, because they did create a lot of good chances, and which I'm just questioning. They brought in Messiah Bright over the off season, and I thought that was going to be like a great signing for them, that she was going to play like a bigger role, because she was like central to Orlando. They missed the playoffs narrowly, but they had a pretty successful season by, their standards, at the time. 6 goals. She started the majority of the games. At this point, she's only played like 258 minutes for Angel City.
Mm-hmm.
And Andre Carlisle wrote about this like more in depth in his newsletter, but pointing out places where she could be inserted to the lineup could help Angel City, and mainly it's like her ability to carry the ball, which they're needing at the moment. So I mean, check out that if you want to read more in depth about it. But I just don't understand Becky Tweed's kind of just like refusal to play her.
Sydney Leroux, if I'm looking at this correctly, had 1 shot all game as striker.
Yeah, she's been like good holding up the ball, connecting things, but she doesn't get a lot of shots off.
The commentary on the Angel City goal kind of gave her credit, even though she like was just kind of in the area, and it was mostly just like unserious communication between Gotham's defender and Berger, because it was like, oh, she's surely gonna head the ball right way, right? And then didn't, and it went in the net.
Did he die?
You froze.
Oh no. I'm sorry. Well, we're back.
It's alright. Mitch is gonna say his thing again.
Did you guys hear none of it?
I heard it was miscommunication between Gotham backline and then.
Yeah, we'll just go with that. Emily, keep talking.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think well, she was key to the play, because if she hadn't been there, it would have been an easy catch for Berger. But yeah, I think they need to play Messiah Bright. I am feeling really good as a Gotham fan. I just see them improving every game. And we are creating, I think, a lot of chances that we're not converting, but I think we're starting to click in that way. So if that continues in that trajectory, I think we're going to be in a really good spot by the end of the season. Yeah. Mateus, you look like you're. I was going to
bring up how Ella Stevens got snubbed for the.
Oh yeah, she got subbed for like team of the month for May, which is crazy.
Pretty unfair.
Very unfair, and I think Sophia Smith could have taken a month off.
Well, we I'm assuming we're going to talk about Sophia Smith.
Oh,
we will later.
We are. But I can't believe we've talked about this game for this long and not talked about Rose Lavelle's goal to win.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I got all pretzeled up. But that was her like deception in that moment where she like opens up to it looks like she's gonna go far post, and then one near post is just like chef's kiss.
So good.
And I just love like that we were able to create that kind of goal. I feel like you don't see a lot of interchange in the box
Mm-hmm.
in NWSL like build up.
Yeah, no.
So that was lovely. And I do hope that players like Yasmin Ryan can start to contribute some goals. She had a chance that seemed like pretty bang on, missed wide. I think she'd be like an elite player if she was able to add that to her game.
For sure.
So Yasmin, please. And another note on Angel City. Sorry, but well, just to note today, Kristen Press rejoined team training. 2 years to the day that she tore her ACL initially. 4 surgeries later. Yeah, I'm almost like afraid to talk about it.
Yeah, I don't
want
want
to
to think anything until she's getting minutes.
I don't expect to see her before the Olympics, so I think it's just going to be baby steps still. And that's fine, because what's the rush?
Yeah, I think it's fine if it's just like a come back, play the end of the season, and be like, well, I came back, I did it. I'm calling it a time because I had 4 surgeries in 2 years. And fair enough, Kristen Press. I didn't mean to bring that up, but thank you for bringing that up before we moved on.
Yeah.
Moving on now to Red Stars 1, Bay FC 2. This game was at Wrigley Field, which is very cool. I'm going to give the Red Stars way less shit than I give NYCFC because they didn't win their game in a baseball stadium. But I think that the vibe of it was very cool because Wrigley is just such a iconic stadium, and also 35,000 people showed up for this game, which has got to be like
it's the record.
Alarm bells, right? Like, hey, people will show up for soccer games in Chicago. I'm not seeing a lot of people at Fire games. The Red Stars are playing in the Fire's old stadium. That's kind of like far out there because it's an MLS 1.0 stadium. And I feel like it's just gotta the Fire and Red Stars gotta come together and just have a soccer specific stadium in a more accessible area of Chicago, right? Like that's gotta be a sign.
I mean, I know that Laura Ricketts is the now owner is definitely looking to make that happen. I don't know if it's with the Fire, but no, I think that's the next step for them. They deserve it. They've been through like the absolute trenches that an NWSL team could go through. An original team. So I really hope that they get that for them. And yeah, I think it was. I know we don't like baseball field games, but I think it was definitely a net positive for them and for the league. I also want to give a lot of credit to Ion because they really put a lot of resources into making the broadcast look as good as it did if you were there. There were drone shots that we got of the fireworks, the pregame and postgame show where it was local at Wrigley. So I just want to give credit to them because CBS, when they were our main partner, did fuck all for us. Very limited camera angles, even when we were on big CBS. So I just want to thank them for being a real one, a partner.
No, it's always cool to see effort put in like that. And I think that I don't know why I felt like Wrigley worked better than NYCFC's playing at Citi Field or Yankee Stadium, but I think that there was clearly
the ivy.
Yeah, I think the ivy adds to the aesthetic, but I think there was kind of just more effort to make it look like more of a soccer field. The camera wasn't at a strange angle like I usually see when NYCFC games are being played. And from what I understand, the groundskeepers at Wrigley toured Yankee Stadium and talked to NYCFC of how are they making these fields safe for players, which is great to hear at the very least.
They talked to both teams as well about what because all the players have had experience having played a baseball field before, and I think they just heard them out on things that they don't like. I heard that there was extra care taken to the corners, put extra sod there. So I'm glad that this was taken like with a lot of care, and it wasn't just a spectacle.
I gotta say, it is cute the first 5-10 times. It's not the reason why we hate Yankee Stadium is because it's permanent, right? Like you can't do that all the time. So, with the caveat that the attention is really cool and the care given is really cool. A real stadium is nice. This is a one-off or like a once in a few times just to get the numbers up. It is cool, but
no, I think this is a nice like once a year thing for Chicago. I think this is like we do this like once, get a nice attendance record, and then we go back to playing on soccer fields. Yeah. Also, there was like a shirt that I saw a picture of like the Red Stars logo with like some ivy around it. And I was like, that's very cool, like kind of commemorative kind of merch you're releasing for it. I guess we didn't talk about the game.
Yeah, we talked about the game.
It didn't go well for Chicago. Bay FC looked really good. They really nice goal from Pickett for the opener, and then an own goal late in the game to make it 2-0, and then Red Stars got one back. But I thought Bay FC looked really good in this game.
Yeah, no, they were like super dominant. Most of possession, they had like 20 shots, 7 on target. The goals, at least Kiki Pickett's was really nice. I felt for Chardonnay Curran, who was the Red Stars player who doesn't get a lot of minutes, got on the field, and attempting to clear the ball, it ricocheted off of actually Joel Anderson, I think, from Bay. So that was just like, The second goal really kind of, like, they're not going to get a result out of this game. I am really glad that Penelope Hawking was able to get a consolation goal for the crowd. I think the crowd responded, really well anyway. Like, they made the most of it. Mm-hmm. It was also a really nice goal, really nice finish. And also something really cool about this goal is that Penelope Hawking's father used to play for the Twins. And when he played for the Twins, he scored a home run at Wrigley. So it's like, what father-daughter combination, could ever score at a baseball stadium?
I think the last Hawkins to score at Wrigley was her dad.
Yeah. So it's just like, that's really cool, like, piece of history that like likely won't be replicated anywhere. Of course, if Mal had scored, it'd be like husband-wife situation. But
for
yeah,
sure.
Actually, Mal wasn't on the ball much at all. Why? Get her on the ball.
Feed her.
Yeah, I feel like a tactical choice I would make as a manager is letting the best player be on the ball.
Yeah. Play Shea Groom.
Yeah. Let's move on now to Wave 1, Pride 1. What do you think, Mateus?
Yeah, so this was an interesting game, right? Away from home, Pride are going away. Undefeated still, 8-0-3 prior to this game. 3 draws. Going into like a competitive game with the Wave, right? Casey Stone's gonna take this seriously. The first goal from the Pride came off of a complete like hustle turnover situation, or like it was a corner. And then like the Pride kind of bunkering all game, like to start the game at least. Not under like super heavy pressure. Like Morgan wasn't getting the ball initially a ton in the box. She was later on the first half. But I think it was McCutcheon saves the ball from going out of bounds off like a throw in after a corner and knocks it up the field to Banda, who carries it the entire length of the field and cuts it back to Julie Doyle, who is probably should have held her run more, but is able to get her back foot onto it and knock it into the net past Sheridan. A really nice finish, like totally off balance. And I would say a little bit against the run of play. Right, but not like overwhelming. I think that's something tactically they were arranging for. They were sitting deep, waiting for chances to break. Huge credit to them. And then Casey Stone is pretty upset going halftime. They're down 1-0 at home to a good team, but dominating possession, still not getting a lot of chances for the Wave. The second half comes. Banda gets subbed off for Marta, so a little bit of a it's a sub you want to make. You're taking off Banda, you might as well put on Marta.
Goat for goat.
Yeah, seriously. But the Pride decide to press higher in the second half, which didn't make a ton of sense to me and left their back line really exposed. And for a little bit there, Jaden Shaw was taking a lot of advantage to it, a lot of like running directly at the back line. Eventually they get a goal through Doniak. It was a really quick reaction at the back of the box. Off a parry cross type situation. I think it was Shaw that sent it in. Maybe it was McCaskill. And like towards the bar, curling from across the from the left hand side. Morehouse parries it over to the right, and then Doniak just kind of like a snapshot. Even though there's like a bunch of Orlando players around her, he's just quickest to react first to the ball, and sneaks one through, ties it up 1-1, and then with the Pride kind of on the ropes, Alex Morgan and Jaden Shaw get taken off for minutes restriction kind of purposes. One after the other. I think Morgan's right before the goal, but instead of kind of going for their throat, I guess they followed the physical protocols for these two girls after the international break. And it kind of goes flat from there. Like the match is pretty quiet and stays at that 1-1. Gurma and Dahlkamp are a really good game. They were shutting anything down from Orlando in the second half. Wasn't a lot of threat whatsoever. But at the same time, the Wave weren't really able to press the same way with Jaden Shaw off the pitch. And it kind of settled into like a pretty dull game towards the end. But Kylie Strom was really good for both of the center backs, Gurma and Dahlkamp on one end. And then Kylie Strom had a really good game for Orlando Pride, kind of fending off a lot of crosses, being really strong in the back, strong into the tackle. And I think Pride, stay undefeated, get a much appreciated draw away from home against a really good Wave team that was kind of determined to go at it for a little bit. So a good game all around. Credit to them. Credit to Seb Hines for like doing the tactical shift, even though I didn't think it worked out. I think just being bold enough to go press the Wave in the second half kind of shows how much he trusts his team without Banda up there and kind of relying on the physical traits that they've developed. So, I don't know, that was an interesting game.
Yeah, tough for San Diego. They have one win in their last 5 games. They're not in great form right now, and with a team with this much talent, they need to be doing better than they are. Let's move on now to Thorns 1, Courage 0. I feel like there's like one thing I want to talk about in this game. It's not soccer.
I was going to say the telling thing about this game is the one thing that everyone's talking about. And it's nothing to do with the game, really.
Really funny. I will say that there was 2 red cards in this game, and I watched the highlights. And no, if you only watched the highlights and had no context whatsoever for what happens in this game, you would think that the Thorns got a magical penalty gifted from God that didn't have any play that happened before. There was no repercussions for the Courage. They didn't get any cards on that play because nothing was shown. And then apparently you would have no idea that the Thorns got a red card because they didn't lose a player on the pitch when that player got a red card. And that is Sophia Smith getting a second yellow while she was on the bench, trying to hide the ball to waste time, which is without a doubt the funniest red card I've ever seen. And she's going to be suspended next week for their game against the Reign. They don't need her against the Reign. The Reign are terrible. They're going to be fine without it. This is going to blow up when they lose. But they're going to be fine. They didn't need her anyway. She needed a rest. But that is the funniest red card I've ever seen in my life. Because what did she think was going to happen?
Can I say something?
I think she just felt a little silly. She's like, I'm just gonna crawl. I'm, cute. Everybody loves me, and I'm just gonna hide the ball.
I think she was feeling a little silly, and then she slid the ball way too hard. I thought she was like trying to just push it back and forth, like, oh, haha, I'm handing it to you, and then she actually just slid the ball under the bench. It's like, oh shit, that's my interpretation.
I mean, the fact that she's if she was sitting on the bench and the ball rolls over and it's by her feet and she just taps it under the bench, I don't know if there's any repercussions for that. But the fact that she got down on all fours and grabbed the ball, that itself was probably the ref saw this what the fuck what are you doing?
She's just in a silly, goofy mood.
And I love her for it, and it's wonderful.
You can't punish someone for being silly.
I will say that this only makes me like Sophia Smith more. I didn't know that was possible, but I like Sophia Smith even more as a player because of this hilarious red card.
I do wonder, she knows she's on a yellow.
Yeah, right?
Well, she was on a yellow also for time wasting, right?
I don't remember. Probably.
The highlights did not show me the red card that resulted in the only goal of the match. It certainly was not going to show me Sophia Smith's first yellow. That it also didn't show me the second yellow of. So I have no idea.
You know?
I don't know. I wonder
but
if Rob Gale chewed her out in the locker room after. I don't think he even did it, honestly.
I think he like supports this kind of behavior.
Yeah.
he's probably telling them to do that. He seems like the kind of coach that would, because he's just kind of like, seems just like, oh, I'm fun kind of guy. And so I'm sure he was telling them like, hey, if the ball comes over, put it under the bench. It would be fun. Let's see what happens. And it didn't work out, unfortunately. But the Thorns won this game off a Sophia Smith penalty. How'd they get that penalty? I don't know. Emily, do you know how they got that penalty?
I do know. I believe it was Ryan Williams. She stepped on Hina Sugita's foot while trying to win the ball at the very edge of the box. So kind of bummed, the ball was leaving the box, and then she steps on Sugita. So they called the penalty. Probably pretty lucky for Portland to get this call. I mean, it was a penalty, but lucky for them to win a penalty and secure the win, because I do think that North Carolina, they've not been good away from home, but I think this is a better performance than they've had away from home. They did a good job like jamming up the midfield and limiting Portland to their chances, I think. But they just like didn't create anything for themselves. And we've talked about this before, that they just have a difficult time scoring. They've been shut out in their last 4 away matches. They've lost all 7 away matches. So I do think this is kind of a storyline that's just like people really aren't talking about in the league. But if I'm North Carolina, my finger is dancing over the panic button for the transfer window, because they need a focal point up front.
Completely fair. Let's move on out to the last game we're covering this week, which is Current 5, Reign 2. I, going into watching this, was not expecting the 2 to be a 2-1 lead that the Reign took. They took a lead before halftime, and then in a matter of like in-game minutes, probably like 3 minutes in-game of like first half, second half, just fully imploded. What did you think, Emily, from the Current's eventual demolition of the Reign?
Yeah. This is a weird one. I do think it was 2-2 at half. My memory serves me correctly.
It was.
But, okay.
I'm saying they scored one at the very end of the half,
and
then they scored 2 in like the first like minute and a half of the second half.
I missed I missed those 2 goals. Like I didn't switch back quick enough from halftime.
People who were getting beers in the stadium probably missed it.
No, it happened within truly like 2 to 3 minutes of start of the half. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm like, what to the Reign? I feel like we just talk about all the time. It's just like not a good situation happening. If I were a Reign fan, I think this would be the match of the season where I just decide to like emotionally detach myself from whatever happens next, because I just know that it's a wash.
This feels a little bit like Laura Harvey going outside.
I don't think anything's gonna happen there, and I don't think that you necessarily should.
Not mid-season, but
I don't think at the end of the season either. Like, I think you just have too much success as opposed to this like season.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
There's a reason why you're throwing up air quotes when you say
that. Right, because
that's all I'm saying.
It's been Shields, although that was in her first tenure with the team. I just think like this period for them, like, and it's not discussed often either, like they're in a state of purgatory without an owner. Like, and that's part of the reason they weren't really able to make too many big moves in the off season, like free agent wise. Like they're not able to sell players on a vision for the club without an owner, or money. either. I mean, they were able to do a couple of, good signings, but nothing that really moves the needle for them, especially when they've lost, Megan Rapinoe, Roosevelt, Emily Sonnet, etc. So I do think you kind of have to think about it in that context as well.
But I think you got to bring in to me as a root, you got to bring in a new manager just as a fresh start after all this, because it's pretty putrid.
I think the players believe in Laura.
That's nice.
I don't know if it I don't know if it would necessarily I don't know, help that much. But
we'll see where it goes. But they've lost 5 in a row earlier in the season. They've lost another 4 in a row now.
I mean, the only team they're ahead in the table of is Utah, who are horrid. So it's not been a good start for the Reign. But I think that what Emily said about losing a lot of players is important context with Seattle. They lost a lot of really, really core players that were the reason they were in the championship game last year. And so, it's not like Laura Harvey's in her second year and has had 1 good year as a coach. She has been pretty consistently successful, obviously bar winning the NWSL championship with Seattle. So I wouldn't blame them if they gave her more time. But also I wonder if her head is looking in another direction potentially for a fresh start, because I know she was someone that wanted the national team job potentially. Maybe there's jobs that open up in Europe where she's looking in that direction. She spent a lot of time with this team. It may be time for her to just try to prove herself outside of Seattle, right?
I think that was, she did. I mean, she left. She went to Utah, where, I mean, they were an all right, it was an expansion side. They didn't have, they were around the playoff line, never made the playoffs, although that was still when there was only 4 teams in the playoffs. So 4 or 6, I don't remember. I would like to see, and she did spend time with the national team. I would like to see what would happen if they opened up the pocketbooks for her, once hopefully this sale goes through. And who knows, there was a half season where they didn't have all those players from Lyon there, where it was really good until those players went back to Lyon. So I don't know. I think just hopefully once the sale goes through and they're able to bring in new players and refreshen the squad. I think that's another big part of the issue is the squad needs refresh, because it's been kind of the same players for a long time.
Yeah, big time.
For sure. We shouldn't discount how a nice win for Kansas City this is. They scored 5 goals in front of their home fans. It's a great performance. I do want to shout out Lola Bonta's celebration, because her Sellies are back. We're happy about that. Vlatko has not made Lola Bonta boring, and for that we can be happy. But that is all for us this week. We're at an hour. I'm calling it. There's no team telling us to shut up, so I have to play both roles. That's all for us this week. We'll talk to you guys next week about American soccer. You guys know what to say.
Peace.
Take your shirt off. Take your shirt off.